Hello, everyone. This is not an episode of Views from Metropolis, even though I am wearing the Superman gear. No, this is the review for James Gunn's Superman. I am lucky enough to be joined by Jeff. We've both seen the movie, folks. It's a miracle we've both seen a Warner Brothers movie. That doesn't happen all that often.
I know, that's true.
Here we are, ready to dive on in. Jeff, how are you doing tonight, sir?
I'm doing super.
Super.
Thanks for asking. I'm super. Thanks for asking. Yeah.
I mean, I'm feeling pretty super myself. We each just got back from seeing Superman. Now the question is it a super film? That's the biggest question. But before we dive into that, I do want to say this was my most anticipated film of the year. You can ask Jeff. I was messaging him about how excited and worried I was this morning because the day was finally here to see it.
And I was like, I also am looking forward to it.
But for those of you who don't know or have followed Views from Metropolis, this film filmed in my hometown, Cleveland, Ohio, last summer. A lot of the outdoor areas are Cleveland, and for those of you who don't know, Cleveland was the basis for Metropolis back when Siegel and Schuster created the character of Superman, the first superhero in existence. And so, yeah, he's the first comic to ever use the term superhero. Didn't know that.
Oh, to use it, I was gonna say, like, weren't people their characters like Doc Savage or whatever that came before that, technically.
But he's the first superhero, and that's
codified term.
Yes. So that was something really exciting for me, and it's exciting as a fan of the character to watch the homegrown character come home to film this rebooted universe, directed and produced by James Gunn, the new DC head. And that meant a lot for me because we were just coming off of Guardians 3, which was a fantastic film. So I was really worried and excited heading into this film because I was telling Jeff this morning, like, James Gunn's due. He's due for something that's not the best. And I'm happy to report, at least for me, I felt like he hit the notes I needed this film to hit. Is it a perfect film? By no means. But ultimately, the film is what it needed to be, and that was what was most important to me. Jeff, how do you feel?
I liked it.
You're normally the one who's waxing poetic.
I don't know. I liked it. It's like, you watch the movie trailer and you're like, is this what the movie's going to be like? And it kind of is. It's hard to sell like some of this stuff without just relying solely on like iconography at this point. Which is odd because it's like, this is going to be someone's first Superman movie, so you can't
It was my
just
godson's
rely.
first Superman
Like,
movie.
so you can't just rely on iconography. But I think overall, I'm a big fan of James Gunn's work, both his movie stuff as well as TV work that he's done. I enjoy Peacemaker. I really enjoy Creature Commandos as well. I'm a big fan of just like the kind of like the vision that he has with a lot of stuff. And I think the way that he was able to once again take a concept, which was, hey, I'm going to reboot a concept, or I'm going to introduce a concept into a universe that involves a very large cast of characters that I'm going to be adapting or introducing all at once, and yet still have it be a very, for the most part, I think, focused type of narrative, focused on the main character type arc, as opposed to needing to juggle 800 people constantly. I think for the most part it succeeds pretty well there, which seems to be like his forte. Really, once again, he's able to show his skill behind the camera as an action director, or whatever second unit director he got for this too. they plant seeds for stuff of how it can work for a universe. I couldn't care less about how a movie can work as a universe, and I think it's what I like about this movie is it plants little bits here and there about filling out like a universe for them to build off of, but at the same time, like, this is just a serialized like Saturday morning cartoon.
Yes.
It's big, it's bright. I'd argue in some instances too bright. Um, but it's big, it's bright, the colors are bold, the characters are loud, but also like they all have arcs that work, I think,
Yes.
too. Um, and I think that he picked out a great cast, which he's always good with. For the
We'll
most
talk about
part,
that in a minute.
is the needle drops work here because this isn't a movie that relies on needle drops in the same
There's so few, and I loved it.
only a few of them, and when they do show up, it's like, oh yeah, this is a fun one for this. So he's still good at helping work with that. Overall, I really enjoyed it. I don't think it's perfect either, but then again, like, no film is, and I think that the good that I feel towards this far outweighs the negativity that I may feel.
Yeah, and you talk about it feels like a
Is
Saturday
that
morning
wordy enough
cartoon.
for you?
Yes, that's more what I
Got
expected.
it.
But no, no, you talk about it feeling like a Saturday morning cartoon, and honestly, I haven't been shy about it, and you've been proud of me for this for maintaining for the last three or so years that the Batman is my favorite film of all time. I haven't changed my mind. I haven't wavered from that opinion. The
That's also
Batman,
a Saturday cartoon, more like a
yes,
Saturday at 11:30 p.m. on Adult
yes,
Swim type
yes.
type
But
of
it's
Saturday
literally
cartoon.
it's a grown up version of Batman the animated series. That's how I describe it to people.
Oh, I didn't even think about that. I was just
It's great, but am
making
I
a
wrong?
joking.
It is a grown up version of Batman the animated
Yeah,
series.
what was really cool was there was actually a Batman at my theater.
That's awesome.
Yeah, there was a guy that showed up wearing a bat costume.
That's awesome.
There was another guy there that I don't know if he was part of it or not, but he was dressed up like Superman and people were taking pictures with him. A lot of
Cool.
people walked into the theater wearing costumes or
I
like
just wasn't sure,
capes. They
but
were passing out
yes,
capes and stuff for, all the people
yeah.
there
I mean,
to hopefully, can't say whether
where
or not that like sways an opinion or not. I
right
just took a poster because I was like, hey, cool, a poster.
was that a look up Philly poster? Because this is a look up Cleveland look up with the Cleveland skyline poster. Metropolis in the movie for those who don't know. Anyways, but no,
No, no, it's just the one like the one sheet of him. I
okay.
don't know. I don't have it in the room with
But
me.
but no, going back to the film, this felt like a 2 hour long episode of Superman the animated series, for better or worse at times. There were certain times where my issues with James Gunn's comedy reared their ugly head. Like you didn't need to, like it was a very cool moment that would just one liner after it, and I'm just like, oh no, buddy, that wasn't necessary there.
I think for the most part, the one-liners after things worked.
For the most part. But I was just saying, there's for me when it comes to the James Gunnisms, there's always just like one or two too much,
Mhm.
and I felt that a few times. Um, and I you mentioned the cast. I love the biggest thing for me going into this film, and I've told people this, was that they captured the essence of Clark slash Superman, Lois, and Lex perfectly. To me, the definitive Lex Luthor is Michael Rosenbaum's Lex Luthor from Smallville. But I am still a massive Hackman fan. Nicholas Holt's Lex Luthor does a fantastic job. Or
He's so
excuse me,
good. He's such an asshole.
Nicholas Hoult as Lex Luthor does a fantastic job of blending those two performances together and making it his own. I
Mhm.
saw shades of Hackman. I saw shades of Rosenbaum, and I was like, it was just
If
fantastic. It was
yeah, like if
beautiful.
you ever watch The Great on Hulu, ran for 3 seasons. I wish it kept going. It ended in a way, it got canceled, but they ended the season in a way where it could be a series finale if they
Unlike
had
Mythic
to.
Quest.
And it worked well enough as a series finale, that show. And Nicholas Hoult might be my favorite performance of anything he's done, is the work that he did in The Great. um and in there you're able to see like he's so good at playing an asshole. And it's a very different kind of asshole there, but it is a guy with a lot of power and a lot of money and a lot of people that just do whatever he says, regardless of whether or not they're going to question it or not. So there's some parallels I can make to that. And I mean, that one, he's much more like he's just a straight up fuckboy in The Great. And here, not quite as that. I really like what he does here. Um, and I like that he is very open about the fact that he just hates Superman to like to an irrational degree, and
which is
he's fine with it.
it's that's the Hackman of it. That is the Hackman of it. It's
I don't like, as you know, I've only, as of this recording, um, I have only watched,
the
I've
first
seen
two.
Superman stories. I read a couple comics, but like, I just remember them being good. I don't really have any specific attachment to certain characterizations
Yes,
of them. Of the main Superman on films I haven't seen are 3 and 4.
you don't need to watch those.
The two worst ones from my understanding.
You don't need to watch those.
Um, and well, I mean, I say worst ones, but I have to compare them to like BVS to really make that decision.
They
Um,
make BVS look like a Best Picture winner. Let's
I
move
don't think
on.
that's possible. I genuinely don't think that's possible.
You'd be
Uh,
shocked, but
that's a special thing. We're not going into that there
yes,
because I think that
we'll feel the wrath of the comic
in their
section.
different ways, we're talking about like casts like, Christopher Reeve, Incredible Superman. I liked Brandon Routh. He was actually the first
Yes,
Superman I saw in theaters. I went with my pop-up to go see that. We went to a Stewart's near him around Atlantic City, and I ate the burger that got my picture on the wall, and then I went to the Tilton movie theater near Atlantic City. I believe it's the Tilton, and we went and we saw Superman Returns. And I remember sitting in that theater, 13 years old, when I saw it, and going, "This is kind of boring." In Superman Returns,
no,
2006.
yeah, no. I was doing the math. I'm like, was I really 12 when that came, or going on 12 when that came out? Yeah, I
Yeah,
was. I was 11.
I turned 14 November that year, and that was a summer movie. So I was
I
13,
turned
and
12 that year, and that's
you know, I
gasoline.
so I liked Hackman in like I liked Hackman in the Reeve movies I saw. I
Those are the only
liked
two that he's really in, besides the fourth
I
one.
that's what I've heard. I liked Kevin Spacey in Returns. I think I enjoy that movie more now as an adult than I did
Yes,
then.
agreed.
Um, I think that movie's pretty solid. It's been years since I watched it though, so I have to double check again. Um, I liked Ralph in that movie. When it comes to Man of Steel, pretty open. Not a big fan of the movie. I think there are aspects that are really good about it,
That
such
bigger
as
bite comes
that
out
being
actually.
this
That Views from Metropolis episode comes out tomorrow. Actually,
yeah that score is
fantastic.
awesome. Um, I think that Cavill is a suitable Clark Kent and Superman because he's not really given a lot to do on the paper, and he is as good as what he's given.
Yes,
So, but I think that he makes for a good one if he was given better material. Anyways,
agreed.
I like him though as Clark Kent. Didn't like Jesse Eisenberg as whatever character they had him play
Yeah,
because I don't know what that was. In BVS for Lex Luthor. I like a lot of the animated versions of Lex Luthor. I
Clancy
loved that
Brown.
we got because I don't know like the most of them. I only like know recent ones like Giancarlo Esposito played
Clancy
him in
Brown.
and Clancy Brown, yeah, I bet he's great. I never
He's
really watched
he's super. He's the '90s Superman, the
yeah,
animated
I never
series.
watched that. I
I
never
know. I'm
really
just
watched a
explaining.
lot of
Like
that. No, I
I
get
was
it.
just
Yeah,
saying, give
I knew
Clancy
that
his
it was a
fucking
big name. I
respect.
knew it was Mr. Krabs. I forgot that at the time that I was talking here because I was so focused on remembering Lance Reddick's name. Lance Reddick, I like him a lot as
Yes,
well. As a version of him for
Harley Quinn.
Harley Quinn, or no, Lance Reddick voiced him in season 1 of Kite Man Hell Yeah, I believe.
I thought it was early Harley Quinn also.
No, because they changed some of the voice act. I'm not going to go into detail on that. I don't feel like digging into that. Either way,
Lex Luthor has always been.
Lex Luthor's always been really interesting. He's always been smart and conniving, and it's really I really enjoy the kind of villain that he is here, where
Mhm.
he is definitely an evil guy, and Holt plays him so well because Holt's really good at just being an asshole, and
Yes.
he's just a rich
Ah,
genius. And what are rich geniuses that we know in this world to be? Assholes.
assholes. So real quick, um, you we'll talk about this scene because the clip is out there on YouTube. It's shown on the Jimmy Kimmel show.
Briefly,
Where
I don't feel like going too deep into
I'm
like
I'm
scene
not I'm
discussion.
not, but
Yeah, yeah.
it's
Oh,
tying in
the one
the
where he's yelling about the dog. Yeah, yeah.
where's the dog clip? In that scene, you can see how he's got a just like has like a half an inch to an inch on Luther. And somebody posted on social media, it's like the way I this is before the movie came out. Like the way Holt, you can tell is playing Luther. You know that half inch to an inch bugs the living shit out of him,
That's exactly the way the Hulk plays it,
and that
and
is what I was getting to.
that and this isn't just in like, oh, we're able to read into it. No, this Lex Luthor is very open about
How
his
much
ego and his jealousy and his envy about like Superman, but not just Superman, other people, but really mostly just Superman.
I spent the last few
Um,
years studying Superman to defeat him, just figuring out how to combo. I was like, Jesus Christ.
yeah, like and it worked. It's awesome. Like that's really fun stuff.
Yes.
And yeah, he's just that scene, that clip online. I have one issue with that scene, and it's still in the movie, and that is just like that whip pan, the way they do that in the shot. They do a whip thing and then a cross cut right back. Rather, they
Mm-hmm.
should have just done as they do in several other points of the movie, a full whip pan back and forth rather than their cut back. It's little things like that that occasionally bother me. Um, just wanted to say that. But anyways, yeah, we talked a lot about Lex Luthor. Liked him a lot. Skylar Gazando, great Jimmy Olsen.
Dude,
He's so
that is
funny.
so
That
awesome.
he's not even like doing a
And
lot, but he's
but
good at what
when
he's
he
doing.
gets his moment, he's full Skylar Gisondo and
Uh
kills it.
Bien,
Kills
bien, bien.
it.
Licorice
No,
pizza.
but
Great in that too.
what we
Hmm.
really have to talk about is Clark and Lois because David Corenswet, he's basically just broke. He's going to be breaking out onto the scene for multiple people.
He should have after Pearl, but
He should have, but Pearl is a smaller movie. It's not big budget. Um, but this dude, easily performance wise, the best Clark and Soups combo since Christopher Reeve. And I didn't know if I'd be saying that after this film. I've always been a Ralph defender. I'm a big heckling guy, and I'd probably say the amount of humanity he brings to the character is what makes him so damn compelling. And I absolutely loved it. Now there was some writing for the character that I'm like, all right, you're going a little too far with the Boy Scout shit, like the golly and
I
gee.
don't care about that. That's exactly what he is.
I,
Like that is to
no,
him to a
that
T.
it's a slight step too far.
And
But
it's only I don't think that they did it. They only did it a few times.
and
And I
again,
was fine with the few times that he did it.
that's you that versus me. That is
He is
just
he is literally a Boy Scout, like the way that he's always been characterized that way.
yes.
And and
I'm
since
just saying there
yeah,
was like there's a at a certain point I was like, we get it. He's a Boy Scout. It's fine. We know this. You've shown us in enough various other ways. Move
I
along.
mean he's not looking at someone and going language, like he just
Right.
says golly.
Yeah.
He says hoo boy, which is fine.
That was I'm just saying. There's a few times I was like, all right, we get it. You don't need to just write a
Um
golly here. But
but
no.
yeah, I really like him. I liked him a lot as both Clark and Superman. He was
Mm-hmm.
able to make them both stand out as two different kinds of people, really, while still
Mm-hmm.
being the same guy. Um, I like that when he's out and about, he's able to make himself, be Clark, and people treat him as Clark.
Mm-hmm.
But one thing I actually thought was interesting was and it's similar actually in the vein of the Batman. If we're gonna bring that up again as a comparison,
I
that
think
movie
I know where you're going.
is mostly about the Batman and not really much of Bruce Wayne. And in this film, there's not a lot of Clark Kent. I think there's a lot of Superman with Clark Kent kind of being off to the side.
And you can say the
And
same with Man of Steel, but this
yeah,
handled it better.
I there's a lot more I think Clark and Man of Steel though.
Just
No,
finished a rewatch.
oh well,
Just,
I can't bring myself to want to
excuse me,
rewatch that to double check.
excuse me. You are. I'm talking about fully like the getting the journalist Clark, because you don't get journalist. You get
Oh, well, that movie, yeah,
they do
that
they
movie
do
doesn't
Clark
care about
very
any of
weird
the
in
journal.
that.
None of those movies care about the
Yeah.
journalist stuff
But
from Clark. They don't care about that.
You get what I mean. Like, it just
Mhm.
getting moments of Clark trying to make a name for himself in this.
Yes, like that sort of stuff, and I like that how they're able to interrogate stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I like, this is a scene that's also in the trailer too. I'm not like, and it's inevitable if you are familiar with Superman. He has a scene with Pa Kent, and
That
in
scene, I was crying. I'm not even gonna lie.
I don't cry at things, so I didn't.
Yeah,
But
I know you're emotional.
I almost shed a tear at the end of Schindler's List. Uh, but no, like in that scene, I think it's a really, especially with the stuff they talk about in there. But I think that it does a great job really emphasizing how Superman and Clark are the same person.
Yes.
And the movie really hammers that home. It's really only just the people that don't know him that Clark is even a thing. Clark is barely a blip on who he really is, I think. So I think that he was raised to be Superman. He wasn't raised to be Clark. I like that a lot. I think that he was charismatic. He was funny. He was able to handle himself very well in the dramatic scenes as well. He was able to play off everyone, I think,
Yes.
very well. Um, he had great rapport with Mr. Terrific.
Yes.
Since we're already like over 20 minutes, I don't want to like dive into.
No, we're
deep into
probably
also
going to be
that
30.
game.
Let's be honest. We still got to
Yeah,
cover Lois.
he did a great job. He had great banter with Mr. Terrific. I really liked his back and forths that he had with Guy Gardner, Green Lantern,
Yes.
Nathan Fillion there,
Yes.
getting an actual character in a James Gunn
I know,
film for the first time
not just a
in years.
cameo. Not
And
just
like,
a
yeah,
cameo.
like I think the last time he had a legitimate role was in a in a James Gunn directed film, I think was actually Slither, because he showed up as like a joke kind of character in Super, and he was just sort of cameo roles in various
Well,
ways.
Guardians, he
The
had a little bit
Guardians
more than Guardians 3, I mean.
they weren't big stuff though. He was
Right.
like he was a guard in Guardians 3. Like
Yeah.
he was never a big thing. Here he was like a notable character. And yet still everything was at the mercy of the Superman and Lois story. One other side character I just want to mention, besides the fact that Wendell Pierce, great Perry White in his limited screen time. As soon as he was announced, I knew that. Beck Bennett was just kind of funny that he was there.
Yes.
He was probably like I found him funny, but I also found that he was the most distracting kind of like comedy. But I enjoyed his little bit on its own. But Anthony Carrigan as Metamorpho,
not given a lot, but does a lot.
Not given a lot, but I really enjoyed what they did give him, what he did with it, despite all the makeup that he was under, the kind of stuff that he did. I found it really interesting, and colorful and engaging in a way that I didn't expect, because I don't know anything about Metamorpho, which is cool. I like going into this where I get to see a big super team with a bunch of different people that I know nothing about, or if I do know stuff, it's all along the way, I've learned stuff, maybe, not necessarily by choice, but cultural osmosis. Right. So I'm glad I knew nothing about Metamorpho. So that was just an interesting, cool, and I didn't know anything about Mr. Terrific either. So I really like the stuff that I learned about those characters and what they might be able to bring to the table in the future. But also, who knows? If this movie is the last thing we see of them, which we know we're filming other stuff, but this is the last we ever see of them. Cool. I enjoyed their time here too.
real quick.
All right, back to
We
the main
haven't.
thing.
I was about to say we
Lois.
haven't talked. I was about to say we haven't talked Lois, and you know me. I was not entirely on board with the Brosnahan casting. I was very vocal about that in our group chat with Paige.
Mm.
By the time this film, like the marketing really ramped up, I was all on board because of how I heard her speak about journalism and being someone who loves the art of and everything of journalism. It was very nice to see her take things so seriously, and you get that here. Her Lois was fucking incredible.
Okay.
I loved and I love the little nod they do at the end where she's wearing like the classic Lois like blue or purple sweater and just the look you're used to seeing her in the comics. Um, but just how she was handling certain situations, being able to see something we haven't seen really in a long time. And we got hints of it early on in Man of Steel, but the Bulldog Lois, who's hunting for the story and trying to actually sit there and figure out what the hell is going on,
Mm-hmm.
just absolutely incredible. I personally was on the Emma Mackey train. I'm all aboard Rachel Brosnahan train now. Like she was absolutely
I
killer.
was always on board because when I heard that the way they were gonna like kind of attack Lois and Clark together and how uh she would kind of work in this film, they used, His Girl Friday as a big example. And one of the super like feisty, super intelligent journalist who is able to have screwball comedy type back and forth um, conversations with Clark. And I knew that she was perfect for that because I love Marvelous Mrs. Maisel. I don't know if you ever watched that show.
Never watched Marvelous
Have you ever
Mrs.
watched Gilmore Girls? I've never watched Gilmore Girls, but
Fuck no.
she, it's supposed to be a great show. So, that's a show where it's like mile a minute, people talk, 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 and it is just boom, 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 boom. It is a show designed and built off of the screwball comedy back and forth type conversations. So hearing that that's where they were trying to like pull ideas from His Girl Friday and films of that ilk, um, had me understand just based off that alone that she was going to successfully fulfill that sort of vision. I think that she was incredibly charismatic. Her chemistry with David Corenswet is great. Her chemistry with other characters also good, despite
Yes.
not necessarily interacting with quite as many as maybe she could have compared to like Superman interacted with virtually everyone.
Yes.
Um, Lois Lane did not necessarily, but I loved her back and forths with Jimmy and her little bits that she had with Perry White and others. But she just obviously the central role was for her was playing off of Superman, and in that respect. Everything they did, I loved all the work they had together. One of the things that James Gunn does so well is and I was texting with another friend of mine who had seen it, and he brought it up, and this is something I was thinking as well, but I feel like I'm just repeating his thought when I don't mean to. James Gunn is just really, really good. I think that as much as I like the big set pieces, sometimes they can be a lot of fun. The action is, ooh and ah, like
Mm-hmm.
James Gunn is really good when he's able to get in the nitty gritty of just two characters talking when they're trying to
Yes.
connect about something. If they're arguing, but they don't want to argue. Um,
You mean the interview scene because
the
that was
interview scene, which
fucking
was
incredible.
so good, which there's this expectation a lot of people have just in their head, I think, of what Superman is. And once again, I'm a big fan of both. Oh, we could talk about, as I've already connected in this, recording, talking about it's how he is in this characterization versus what we know versus this versus that.
Mhm.
But I think that I don't know where I was going with that there. I went off the trail, got distracted by my own thought
Squirrel.
process. Yeah, squirrel, exactly. James Gunn is really good at just having two people talk. That scene with the interview was just a really good. Oh yeah. People thinking that he is just a Boy Scout, and he is a Boy Scout, but he's
Mhm.
also much more hot tempered than you'd expect once he's actually questioned because he's so convinced he's doing the right thing that he didn't even think for a second that maybe even if he's doing the right thing, is he going about it the right way? And just interrogating Superman on like the foundation of his own actions is such a great way for them to build off build a relationship for how they're going to communicate the rest of the film. Like this isn't something that happens, late in the film. This is something that this kind of conversation, this interview is something that kind of builds the foundation for their relationship for the film.
Yeah, without a doubt.
Like that a lot.
And I mean, there's a lot of surprises in store for everyone. We've been going for 31 minutes, and I know we can still probably go for another 20. Because there is so much to unpack from a 2 hour film. But ultimately, I think we're both on the same page. When I said what I said in our chat, when I said, well, what's your grade? And you messaged me, and you're like, actually, know this. I'm like, okay, so you're the same. You had the exact same feeling as I did.
So I do want to throw this out before we drop grades
yes.
for this. I want to just bring up like negatives just real quick. I think
Yes.
that the third act, it didn't bother me, but it is kind of a mess.
I thought the
In a
first
lot of
act
ways.
was kind of a mess.
I like the first act quite a bit. I do think that the very beginning of it, I really like the setup that they do, but
I
there's
like
like
the crawl. The
clunky,
crawl that
there's
they
like
have.
really weird, like clunky place setting dialogue. And the
Yes.
way that they have the dialogue in there, of course, makes sense because of who's saying it. But at the same time, it's just like you're telling us this. You're not telling him this. It's they're
Mm-hmm.
talking. It's talking to Superman, but it's for our benefit, and it's said in a way where
Yes.
it's just for our benefit, as though this is stuff that Superman has never heard before, which
Yes.
is weird because it's stuff that he absolutely would have heard before, just in the
Yes.
context of the world that's been created. So I think that there's some clunkier dialogue there, and in other little bits in the movie, there's some clunkier writing and bits here or there. So I don't know if it's not necessarily the tightest script or cleanest script that
No.
James Gunn has written. I still like a lot of the writing. I think that mostly it's just the set piece stuff in the finale, how it
So
kind of all goes chaotic, and the
it
effects
it
aren't
it does
necessarily
it does
all.
go chaotic. I can give you that.
I
And
think that the effects could have used a little more work because I think part of the issue is, as I said, in some areas, especially in those set pieces, wherever they're like completely like bathed in sunlight in Metropolis and whatnot, everything seems brighter, and I'm fine with that. But I think it goes too far. It's sort of like I don't know if it's just because Zack Snyder's stuff
was
is
so
so
great.
dark. So is this just going in the opposite direction, similar to how Godzilla 2014, barely any monster stuff. So then I think that King of the Monsters
Went
was an
overboard.
overcorrection in the
Mhm.
other direction of too much stuff where it becomes like a cacophony of sound. Um,
Uh,
I don't know if that necessarily happened here, but I think that it could have, it was washed out almost too much. The way I know that was a discourse online, but there were just parts where I'm like, oh, this is great. It looks fine. And then in other parts, I'm thinking the same thing I thought when I watched all of the movie Wicked, which is why does it look like this?
for me, I like I already said, act one was the first half of the film. Breakneck pace. They're clunky dialogue, clunky set pieces for me
I
personally.
was fine with the pace.
Um, it's so you and I know this being in this space. There was the rumored stuff to come out about a couple weeks ago where originally this was supposed to this was going to be like this day was Monday, this day is Tuesday, this day is Wednesday, like
Oh yeah, I
a
heard
day.
something that was going to
Yeah,
take place within like
and
a week, and it kind of
yes,
does.
it does. It clearly does. But
It
you can
does. It takes place
especially
within a
in
week.
that first act,
Sure.
you can pick that apart and be like, oh, this was going to be this, this was going to be this, and then by the second act, you just couldn't tell it all just blended together that well. I didn't like. I appreciated the MacGuffin that made Clark question everything about himself.
Mhm.
However, as a Superman fan, I didn't like the MacGuffin itself because it kind of betrays a lot of what the character has stood for and important lore to the character.
I liked that. What you're saying, I know
That
what you're talking about. I liked
that's
it.
one of those.
I don't care about the lore thing because this is its own thing there. And sure, you can talk about it from an adaptation standpoint, but here, I like what it is. I like what it
It's
means. I like the
it's
conversations that
because
stem from it.
it's because of I felt like some of the dialogue in the continuation of that MacGuffin and the translation became one of those Gunnisms that I've talked about. That's more so where my issues stemmed from.
Oh, I didn't read that at all in it.
No,
So,
I'll
liked
go
it.
more
I
into
liked the
detail after we
implications
close.
from it.
I like the
Um,
implications. It was just just it felt like a joke was thrown in at with that, and I was like, okay, we'll dive into it in
Oh, I think I
spoilers.
know what you're talking
Yeah,
about. I think you know. I think that's fine too because I like that as a recurring thing that ended up
yeah,
happening.
but
But
we'll get into it.
we'll talk about it another time. Maybe we'll do a
Yeah,
spoiler. Who knows? Anyways, let's
that's
wrap
the
this.
hope because Nick and I are going tomorrow for the Amazon screening. So Nick wanted to hop on a review with you and potentially do a spoiler review with us. But no, we like we said we both landed on the same grade. It's a 4 out of 5. There we go. It's a 4 out of 5 for us
Is that
both.
just a solid looking poster for like a superhero
That was
movie? Like
that's one of the best fucking
it
posters I've
feels
seen
like a
in a long
70s
time.
poster in a way where they have the character faces at the bottom and then they just have a one shot type image
Of the
where it
character that matters most.
yeah, like it's
Great.
not a floating heads type thing.
Which they released days after this poster.
And but the thing it's funny because the floating heads one for this, I
Still is better
also
than most floating
like
heads
it.
posters.
I like it more than most floating heads posters. Anyways, yeah, 4 out of 5. Like, I was hovering between 3.5 and 4
That's where I
because
was.
of the messiness, like the kind of like the weird messiness in the final act where it's kind of like having to wrap up a lot of the different threads. I think it had maybe too many threads, like too many plates spinning in the air. But for the most part, well, let's just say that it's like, and correct me if I'm wrong because it's been years since I watched it, but I mean, you remember the movie Flight with Denzel?
Slightly. It's been years since I watched it.
I'm pretty sure everyone on the plane survived, or
Yes.
at least, yeah.
The
Maybe there were
majority. Yeah.
injuries. I think
Yeah.
everyone survived. Maybe
He
there was
was
one
yeah.
death. I don't
I just
remember.
remember yes, I
There,
was
there
drunk.
was, yeah, there was some rough landing there, but everything landed.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's how I felt about the third act, inevitable action stuff there.
Yes. Everything landed. But yeah, we will probably end up doing a spoiler review once I get Nick in the theater to see this. We'll schedule one. So be on the lookout for that.
Mhm.
It's gonna be fun. Jeff, thank you once again for joining me. If
You're
you
welcome.
sat here through all 38 minutes of this, you must be either really looking forward to this film or you love our ugly mugs. But be sure to like, and comment on this video. Let us know what you think if you've seen it. The Amazon screenings are tonight by the time this has been uploaded. So if you've already seen the movie and you come back and watch this, let me know in the comments let us know, I should say, in the comments what you thought. Jeff and I both normally keep an eye on those and respond. So just
Whatever helps the algorithm, maybe.
whatever helps the algorithm. But it's also nice to interact with anyone who does comment on these. But with that, folks, signing off. I am Matt. That is Jeff, and this was another real review. We'll see you next time.